Welcome back, everyone, to the Evolving Door podcast. It's the podcast where we chat to people about the clues and the moments in their life where they step through that evolving door. They had a little bit of a clearer understanding about life and themselves. I have a special guest today. Very happy to welcome Dan Hill. He's a award-winning, market-leading serial entrepreneur and property developer and investor, up into the tens of millions. Very, very successful guy. He also talks about an idea called Life by Design, which I think is brilliant. And that's led him to living a simple life on a narrowboat and also in mansions with Rolls Royces and all of that stuff as well. So he's really on the journey. He's really exploring life and trying to understand it better. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks very much. Good to be here.
Fantastic. So you're also the author of this book, Karma Credits, which I love. And it's sort of what set you apart from a lot of the other people that I sort of see that are doing interesting stuff. And, you know, it's not every day that someone who's kind of looks like they're sort of building businesses and chasing money is also writing a book called Karma Credits. We'll get to that. I'm really curious as to how you got there. But cool. Just to sort of ease us in a bit, we've got a few little questions. So at the moment, what makes you joyful at the moment?
Creativity. I think when I'm creating at the moment, this time of year especially, once the autumn season sets in, the days get shorter, everything calms down. I tend to get up very early anyway, so I have this time of year, 2, 3, 4 hours in the morning before I even see or speak to anyone. Lots of time to get introspective. And as far as like my interpretation of joy, I would say being creative and going deep and thinking about things, using my journal, that's where I'm getting most of my satisfaction at the moment in this sort of period of maybe the calendar cycle, but also like of my journey.
Nice. And what makes you angry? What kind of gets you icked a bit, or kind of like gets under your skin?
Well, I'm actually a pretty like patient person. I think I'm very, very sort of predictable, consistent. You wouldn't really know if I'm in a great mood or a poor mood. It's quite sort of steady. But as far as irritability goes, I don't know where it's come from, but there's a few things. It used to be skipping CDs when we used to have CD players.
That. Yeah.
And I would hear it and it would infuriate me. If I'm ever in the car now and the radio's on and it starts to crackle, that would like grind my gears. Little things like that. But as far as like day to day, I don't carry around a huge amount of weight of frustration, irritability. I don't enjoy. I find it quite challenging sometimes to have conversations with people where we're not at the same level. So if somebody's a lot more intelligent than me or talking at another level, something I don't understand, I'll struggle to interact because I don't feel like I can do it justice. And equally, if I'm talking to somebody and they clearly don't know what I'm talking about, I can find that language translation, the gap, quite. I wouldn't say I find it frustrating. I just find it quite hard work.
Yeah.
And noise. Noise can make me very, not frustrated, very tired.
Right.
Maybe frustrated. Maybe like that feeling when you're hangry. You know, when you're like agitated. I'm sitting in an environment, lots of noise. I'm like, I shouldn't really be here.
And do you think that it's just because it's sort of draining you, or that you actually maybe have a sensitivity to noise, like a sensory thing?
Well, introverted people, everyone thinks it's about confidence, but actually, my understanding at least is that introversion and extroversion is where you get your energy from. So I get my energy from being alone. Other people get their energy from being with people. Yeah. But also they say introverts hear a lot more. So I could be in a room and I could hear what the waitress has ordered over there. I know what these guys are having a conversation about. I can hear the dog barking, the cutlery going. And all of that, processing all of that information when actually I just want to have a conversation, it's a lot more conducive doing it here than it would be in an event with 250 people or in a cafe or a restaurant.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll be driving along in the car, like talking to people in the car, and I'll be noticing what someone who just drove past is doing, and everything. It's like it can be an overload.
My missus goes nuts. I'll be looking at buildings, I'll be looking at deals. Yeah, absolutely.
What's something you're really excited about at the moment?
I've actually got a page in my journal, things to get excited about, because I can very easily just get caught up with the day-to-day of being productive, being busy, and I'm trying to keep myself present. And one of the things I've done is create a list of things I'm excited about. So in my journal at the minute, today, due to be exchanged on my new house, something to get excited about.
Yeah, very exciting.
We've got a couple of big deals going on that I'm negotiating with people at the minute, getting excited about those, moving into my new house. Got a couple of personal things that I'm working on. So lots of things, and they're quite intentional. And they're quite short term as well, because I've done playing the long game, and now I just want those daily, weekly, monthly success triggers.
Nice. And anything that just sort of conflicted about that's sort of an unresolved thing or anything like that?
Probably drinking alcohol. So I've come from a family of big drinkers. My dad worked in the wine trade. Both my parents have always drunk, not alcoholics, both professionals. But we were just a family that socialising is the bar opens at midday, you drink all afternoon. And it's just a big cultural thing in my family. And that was fine for the last 20 years. But I'm getting to a point now where I'm like, the law of diminishing returns, I really don't feel like it serves me. And last year I did about 3 months without any alcohol. The year before that I did about 6 or 9 months without any alcohol. And when I don't drink, I realise how amazing it is for my life. And I'm just like, wow, this is living life in 3D, HD. I can't imagine ever drinking. And then when I get to the first summer barbecue or whatever, and I have the drink, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I stopped drinking. And it's like this complete thing where I think I should probably not drink at all. But then actually, there's times where I think I would like quite enjoy drink. And I think the difficulty is I've been quite an extremist. So I'm great at loads and I'm great at zero. The struggle is in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think at the minute I'm better off having no drink. I would quite maybe like to have a drink here and there where I think it's suitable and it would allow me to be in those family surroundings. Although I can be anyway. But not to be a bad habit. Yeah. So I've never had a problem with drinking. It's just a bad habit to me.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing how it's so influenced by culture. You know, whether it's in the family or the country or whatever. You know, it becomes an invisible force that you go into a certain environment and the force is there.
And I don't get it. I think a few of my friends who are like similar sort of stage in their journey, who've had similar experiences with alcohol. And we always talk about should we, shouldn't we? We say like we can't believe it's legal. Like you can go to a shop 24 hours a day and buy it. You can walk past Wetherspoons at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And there's people drinking alcohol. You think if that was nowadays, there's no other drug that has that much impact on people's lives.
It's fully acceptable.
That would be fully acceptable and served with breakfast. You just think. So yeah, that's my conflict. That's my first one that springs to mind.
So we're going to go back.
Great questions.
Oh, thank you. What's your earliest memory?
Two earliest memories. So one was when my mum got a new job at the school I was going to work, and I must have been about 3 in the bath with my brother. My mum came in wearing her new cook's outfit. She was going to become a cook at the school
that you were going to go to.
That I was going to go to. Yeah. So she actually followed me through school as a cook. Worked at our lower school, middle school, not the upper school.
Yeah.
That was probably my earliest memory. But then another one, like when I was about 4 or 5, is all the kids got their toys and they were playing with their toys. I got the box that the toys came in and got inside it and cut a little window in it. And I was taking money off the adults in one, putting the sweets out in the middle. And that was my idea of entertainment. And I must have been about 5 years old.
Interesting.
And that entrepreneurial thing existed forever.
Yeah. And, you know, it was really touching, actually. I know you were very close with your dad and he passed away this year. And I heard you speak about him. What was your relationship like with your dad when you were growing up? Really good.
I sort of, through my life with my dad, my parents split up at 7. And actually, I can't remember, in one of their wedding speeches or birthdays, I wrote a poem. And it talks about the fact that they basically were on 2 journeys. And they briefly met at this point where they were very similar, had us as kids. And then when we were about 7, they carried on their journey. Because they're the most different people you ever met. And my mum's always been like my best friend. Like anything goes, whatever you want to do, you know, as long as it's not illegal or immoral, fill your boots, have fun, I'll probably do it with you. She's just like one of my mates. Yeah. Whereas my dad was always like, it's like good cop, bad cop. Because I live with my mum. If I was naughty, you go and see your dad's going to come round. He was like disciplinarianism, or what's the word?
A disciplinarian.
Disciplinarian. He was a disciplinarian. And it was good. It was good for me. It drove me. It made me productive. He had a really good reward system. If I did well, he would like reward me. If I did badly, he would punish me. And it was without a doubt a huge part of my professional growth. And yeah, it was good. I wouldn't change it at all.
Was there ever a you know, like the rose and the thorn? Was there ever any thorn in that as well? Like, is it all upside, or is it like, did you know, it been sort of that dynamic?
Yeah, I think it's. I I did the eulogy at his funeral, and I spoke about the journeys that I'd had with him, and I said like your life, like we talk about on Property Entrepreneur, like the year of your life is a book, and every year you write the chapters. And I talked about the various chapters that I'd had with him, and it started off as like the disciplined dad, where he was really disciplined and basically pulled me into line. Then he was the supportive dad, lent me money to start my first business. Then he was the business partner dad, so I got into property. He had some endowments cash out, and he invested with me. Or he was the investor dad. Then he was my business partner dad. And then in the later years, like probably like last sort of 3 years, we moved away from that, and he retired, and we sold the big company we had together, and he became like the loving dad. And then when he died, he actually became like the stoic dad. He was a very stoic person, very comfortable with death, never scared of it. And it was like, because I had all those parts of it, I was quite grateful. It wasn't like, when he died, I drove back from the hospital, and I remember thinking, I need to be guilty for something. You know, when somebody dies, you must be guilty for something. And I drove all the way home from Oxford, like 2.5 hours, and I got home and I just thought, I don't feel guilty about anything. And the reason for that was we had our journey go through those different chapters, but also I deliberately facilitated quite a few of those. Like when I wanted to go into business with him, I facilitated it. Equally, when I wanted to get out of it, because I felt like it wasn't fun anymore, it got in the way of our personal relationship, I got out of it. And also I invested all the way through in playing the long game. And it's easy to think, I wish we were like mates or we went play football together, but it's like you said earlier, everything comes at a cost, doesn't it? You could have had that, but then you wouldn't have had this. And I'm very happy with that journey.
Well, it's nice that it saw its course, you know, because you know, as a little kid, the discipline and all, you can see the value of it, right? But sometimes as a little kid, you maybe want the more warmth or whatever. But because it came the full journey and you got all the parts, then that's it's a nice way it turned out, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what the question was sort of prompting is like, now that my dad's died, so Andy and I were chatting on the way down, and I was saying like, now because I just bought this new house, it's about I've done 20 years of graft. It's about living. And Andy said if the pandemic hadn't happened, he never would have got out of the pub trade. And I think if my dad hadn't have died, I wouldn't have got out of that driven success thing. Because I did that, I've had the realisation that actually I need to live my life, because he died a year after he retired. What's the point of living 66 years and then die in a year after you start to... Luckily, he enjoyed his whole life, but it'd be very easy to fall into that trap. And now I'm... Going back to the question that you prompted, is I'm now rewiring my brain to get out of that script that I was running that was drilled into me.
Interesting.
But it's got me to where I am, and it served me really well, but now it's not serving me, so now I unwind it and try and find the new rules and the new standards and the new scripts.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I know you're 37, I'm nearly 51, and I feel like every so often, like, I'm still growing up.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, you know, and like it's almost like big things like that. Well, you know, whether your parent passes on or whether you start to learn to see them as an individual separate from you, it's when do you fully take hold of the wheel of your own life completely? Do you know what I mean? Not in someone else's kind of, do you know what I mean? Where you sort of really feel like, now I'm the adult.
A friend said to me maybe 10 years ago, you won't feel like an adult. I say friend, they're probably like 20 years my senior, like senior to me, but they said you'll never feel like an adult until you have a child or you lose a parent.
Yeah.
And I think without a doubt, like since my dad died, I genuinely feel like and then there's also in Way of Superior Man, they talk about the masculine man, the male will never feel true freedom until his dad dies. And I wouldn't say that's how I feel. Like I feel free, like I've been released from the prison.
It's a subtle thing.
But it's definitely a like, right, I've got to be responsible now. There's no backstop, there's no safety net. I am the man of the family.
You're the man, yeah.
Yeah, and then sometimes you're like, this is amazing, I'm the man. Other times you're like, I've got to deliver on this now. So.
Yeah, brilliant. So you stayed living with your mum. I know, as far as I understand, you ended up working in the trades and on sites and stuff. Tell me, you know, sort of from, I guess, 7, you know, till your teens and when you were on the trades, like what fill in that gap?
So always worked. So started off with the box and the chocolates. And then when I was about 8 or 9 at middle school, I got a job with a caretaker, and I used to go around taking the rubber shoes off the chairs, banging them in. Did that 5 days a week for £2.50 a week. When I was about 11, I started the daily paper round. So there was a Friday paper round. A daily paper round, did that. Then I did the Friday paper round and the Sunday paper round through my early years. So I was doing like 3 paper rounds, 7 days a week. And then I went on the buildings at 15, worked on the buildings all the way up until 21. Went to university at like 19 till 22. Still worked on the buildings in my holidays.
So when you say worked on the buildings, did you leave school to do that, or?
So I worked on the buildings when I was at school. So
Really?
I used to work, I went to school Monday to Friday, and I worked on the buildings at the weekend and in the evenings.
And how did you get into, what's the connection to the buildings? And where was it, because you were more inclined that way rather than sort of the traditional academic way, or what was the
original draw was money, so it was really well paid. Like buildings is always in the good market. Buildings are always well paid. So I used to work. I was 15, and I started working with my girlfriend's dad. Well, I wanted to be a labourer.
Did you? Yeah.
So
what was the?
Well, it was £60 a day, and I was looking at my friends. Before that, I was earning £2.50 a week doing paper rounds. Then obviously that was the beds on Sunday. You used to pay me £2.50 for one paper round. So it's probably on 5. I don't know.
So 60 is a big jump, yeah.
Yeah, it was just significant. I just remember looking at it in the shop window, and it was like £60 day rate for carrying rubbish around, and I was like, and then my missus' dad had a building company, and she said, oh, he's looking for a labourer. So I started working for him, ended up having an amazing relationship with him. Basically became a bit like his right-hand man. So I drive the vans, look after the trades.
He can really rely on you to,
Yeah, just like, apart from like weekends when I rolled in hungover every now and again, like in my like 18, 19, 20s, we just had a great relationship, and because it was a family relationship as well. And then I went on to doing dry lining, then I went on to doing roofing.
So you learned quite a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a developer, the first thing you got to watch out for is trades fobbing you off. Yeah. So when someone says, oh yeah, it's going to be another 80 grand to dig this trench round, and you look at it and like run it up the side of the building and out the back, and they're like, oh yeah, okay. You need to sort of, it helps, it works.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I went to do my A-levels, and I was doing A-levels like 3 days a week. So I was on the buildings 2 days, plus the weekends, and A-levels. Then I was doing that, and I thought, I don't want to be the one building the houses. I want to be the guy telling the guys to build the house. So I wanted to be a developer. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Had a disco company. I had a mobile disco company as well. Started that at 15. So I used to do anyone who had a disco, I used to do their discos. I was like, at school I was quite naughty. So like I didn't wear my tie, I wore my cap backwards.
Okay.
So I was with the kids, I was with all the cool kids.
Was it like a public school or a private school?
Yeah, public school. Yeah, it's just like normal. I don't know what you call it. It wasn't private.
Comprehensive.
Yeah. So I was with all the cool. Like I was sort of a bit naughty, so a bit of a cool kid.
But you were still working hard as well.
Yeah, but I was on the school council. I was like my teacher thought I was like best mates with my teacher. The head of year thought I was amazing. I used to organise all the school discos, the prom. So it was like a sweet spot. It's probably the definition of playing the game, where it's like as a developer you need to be creative and bend the rules, but you also need to appease building regs and the council and bend the rules but don't break them. So it's like probably a good example of that. And then went to uni, started another business, scaled that up.
What did you do at uni?
Strategic entrepreneurship.
Oh wow.
So in 2009, I think it was, 2004 when I went to university, entrepreneurship wasn't that cool then, 20 years ago. It was like, there was Richard Branson, that was about it.
Yeah.
And nobody really knew what entrepreneurship was, but there was one university in the UK that did an entrepreneurship degree called Strategic Entrepreneurship, which was not in a business school, so I went there, studied Strategic Entrepreneurship, which is about looking at markets, understanding where to align yourself and then riding the wave. And obviously every university in the country does entrepreneurship now. But yeah, did that. I'm now the entrepreneur in residence for Nottingham Business School.
Oh yeah.
Did that for 4 years, graduated, got a government grant for a small business, started that, scaled that up, sold that in 2012.
What was that first business?
Started off with clothing. So
I heard about the hoodies, was it?
Yeah, the hoodies, yeah. So the hoodies. Then we had an events company. Used to take 60 to 100 students every once or twice a year to Amsterdam. basically just, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
Did that for like 5 years till we got banned from P&O Ferries for life. Wound that up, and then scaled the clothing company around the UK. Sold that in 2012, 2011, 2012, and then went into property.
So I was going to ask you, but I think I already know the answer now from that. Like, when you were on the trades as a teenager, did you sort of dream and sort of believe that you'd get to where you are now? Well, you were already clearly on the entrepreneurial path, but did you obviously dreamed, I suppose, about it, but did you believe at that time? Did you have a lot of self-belief that you were going to get to where you are now?
It's a really good question. And my initial thought is, like, I never had this big dream of like definitely not the material things. I actually saw a photo of me the other day from 2012 when I sold my clothing company, and like I was just wearing promotional t-shirts, scruffy clothes, and I've never really been attached to that stuff. The times I have done it has been an experiment. 2019, penthouse apartment, supercar, brand new Mercedes, most recently Rolls Royce, mansion. And it's like, it's part of life. And my dream's always been to have a stately home, but I was thinking that would be 20 years from now. I've done it now, probably, like I said earlier, because my dad died, and I'm like, why wait 20 years and have it for a year? Why not buy it now?
Yes.
And enjoy it for 20 or 30 or 50, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I never had that huge thing. What I did have was work ethic. Like, I was always the hardest worker. And I know that's not like, there's two schools of thought with work ethic, isn't it? Like, you've got to work to the bone, like Alex Hormozy, Gary Vaynerchuk, or that's false economy. You want to be a Warren Buffett and read the paper every day.
Yeah.
I was definitely, like, my work ethic is second to none, I would say. It far exceeds any of my other skill sets. I can work until I'm literally, I've collapsed before. I could literally work that I could just do that consistently.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do, work really hard. I wanted to earn money, but mainly because I wanted to give money to my mum. So I never really, I did hypnosis a few years ago to understand where my work ethic come from. And it's from my dad saying, if you work hard, you'll get money. And my mum needed money because single parent household, red phone bills, needed money. It was never for like Ferraris and helicopters and stuff like that. Although now I've got those things. Yeah. That was never the purpose. It was working hard. And I used to take performance supplements when I was on the building. So I used to shovel sand as a floor screener, and we used to get paid by metre laid. And basically, as the person loading the pump, the guys inside can only lay as quick as you can pump. So I used to take no explode, nitrous oxide, and I used to shovel on my knees behind my back, start at 8 in the morning, finish at 5 in the afternoon. Constantly looking at what's the next step.
Yeah.
And I've just done that consistently. Like we spoke earlier, I'm ready to go to the next level now. So I'm like, what does that look like? Not for any reason other than growth.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But how does a young lad working on the sites suddenly, at some point, go on a quest to understand what his soul is?
Yeah.
So how did you get to that bit? And obviously, you wrote Karma Credits and stuff. So what happened to lead you to that?
When we talk about wiring and scripting and expectations and beliefs, like my belief was drilled into me from a youngster that if you work hard, you'll get money. And when you have money, that's all you need. So the top of the mountain was money, success, and happiness. And I did all of that so I got there in like 20. So if I started at 15, I had my first business when I was 15, and I sold multi-let in 2021, and I would have been 35, so maybe 10 to 15 years of going up the mountain. And then I got to the top of the mountain. 2019 I probably got to the top of the mountain, really. 2019, 2020. And I got there, and it was the biggest anticlimax that I'd ever had. I couldn't believe it. I was disappointed, I was gutted, I was lost. I'd sacrificed a lot. I'd missed birthdays, fallen out with friends, fallen out with family, got divorced. All of that in pursuit of this thing, or within that journey, part of it. And then I got to the top, and there was no champagnes and confetti, and I was like, wow, how did that happen?
Well, maybe, there probably was a bit of champagne and confetti, but it's more about the feeling, right? Talk to me about the feeling. because it was at the same time when you had the penthouse and the cars and all that, you know. So you got there and you had all the stuff, I suppose, that you expected you'd have, but it's more about the feeling that was different, is it, than you expected?
Well, without dramatising it, that was 2019 was probably the year where I realised all of that. So realised as in it came, it arrived, money, supercar, brand new Mercedes, companies, offices all around the country, and I can say without exception, it was the worst year of my life, like emotionally, exhaustion. I just wasn't in a good place, and I think all of that was just. They say happiness is the difference between your expectations and experience, right? And I would say my expectation was this is going to be something incredible. You wait till you get there, and my experience was like less than nothing. It was like, wow, that was not what I was expecting.
So how did that make you feel? Especially as you say, like that's been your mountain, that's been where all arrows were pointing, you know, even through those good influences. And obviously it was still good because it gets you then to the next place as well. But in that moment...
yeah, so like the searching and the spirituality came from being lost. You know, really I'm trying to understand. You know, most people will turn to like religion or a greater purpose when they're lost. And I definitely went searching for that. I also thought the meaning of life was success. And I'd really loved that 15 years. But there's a thing called the Apollo syndrome. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where basically the guys who wanted to become astronauts, their life's dream was to land on the moon. And when they finally got up to the moon, landed on the moon, they came back and they said the best day of their life was on the way, the worst day of their life was on the way back. Because then their whole life's purpose
was lost.
Had been lost. Because people think, oh, it's been satisfied. It hasn't. It's been lost. It's like imagine believing everything you believe to be true, and then to satisfy or realise it. And it's, you know, the crossing the finish line is the last day of the journey. It's not the first. It's the finish line. It's not the start line. And that's where, I think that's how I felt. And then I just felt really lost because I didn't know what to do. You know, I didn't really have a huge involvement in any personal relationships, friends, partner. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any family. As in, like, you know, I lived in a penthouse apartment driving an R8. It's like, it was just like, wow, what I thought I was going to be this thing. And actually, on the way up, I probably had experiences of being the person I wanted to be. But then I got there and just thought, wow, that was, I just felt, just lost. Lost is probably the biggest word. Like, I really felt lost.
So where did you go looking?
So I started off with philosophy. So I've been reading philosophy since I was probably since 2005. So what's that? Maybe nearly 20 years. I've been reading philosophy. I used to read philosophy textbooks. I used to read the more sort of digestible stuff like Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic. So I've always been quite philosophical, but never in a searching way. And then how did I get to it? I had some personal experiences with, I can't remember what it was with. I basically came to, it was when I got divorced. So in 2019, I was completely burnt out, completely flat.
When did you get divorced?
So I got divorced in 2019.
Okay.
And I only got married in 2018. So wow. I was with my partner for 5 years, very happy, very content. Went to get married, got married, and then realised actually I'd approached the relationship in completely the wrong way. I treated it like a logical transaction rather than an emotional relationship. All of the textbook failures of entrepreneur and high performers. And because of that experience, because of going through that, and because I pride myself on adding value to other people, and because I'd hurt somebody through no fault of their own, they were like the nicest person you've ever met. Still got that absolute highest love and respect for them. To then hurt somebody and upset them put me in a very difficult place. Plus I was burnt out. Plus I did a huge body transformation and put myself into a 1,000-calorie deficit. Plus I'd had this anticlimax with the business.
You really piled it on, didn't you?
Yeah.
Stacked it.
Elon Musk says he's not the sort of person to have a mental breakdown, but in 2008 when he had his Tesla thing, that would have been when it would have happened. If I was probably not as hardwired as I am, or if I had pushed it a little bit further and not had the self-awareness, I probably did have some sort of breakdown in some capacity. And I just realised that through those 10 years, I'd suppressed my emotions, and I just lost any connection to emotion. I'd become very binary, very robotic. And I looked at my early entrepreneur self, and I was quite emotional, very, very driven, very like passionate, and at all costs. I would really get quite uptight about it. And then I finished the journey as this like robotic, logical, binary thinker. And I just felt like I needed to go finding that. So I went and had an experience with a shaman. I went and did some psychedelics.
In the UK?
In the UK. Went under and so I read about the NHS studies and all that sort of stuff. Went and did a psilocybin trip, real deep, completely out of it for like 4 hours. And came back round, and it was literally like being reborn. It was like day and night, and I'd had no emotional experience, no emotional...
connection, I suppose.
Yeah, connection at all. And I'd acknowledge, when I acknowledged it, it made me feel quite sick.
It must have been very intense for you, especially going from someone so disconnected or detached, like, I guess disconnected, to then suddenly like diving into that swimming pool of the cosmic.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. So like when I realised that I'd disconnected from my emotional self, because it happens so gradually, death by a thousand cuts, you never realise. And actually when I realised, I actually felt quite sick about some of the decisions I'd made, how I'd behaved, because they were completely binary and logical.
But you kind of disconnected from what they meant in a way.
Yeah, they were just, that human life is the human thing, and it's like I am still a very stoic person. I wouldn't normally get offended or upset, but I'm equally very emotional. I can connect with people. I'm very connected to things like my charity and stuff like that. It's not like I don't have emotion. It's very deep rooted. But then I felt like embarrassed. I felt like very bad when I didn't have it. But then after going through like a ceremony basically and having that experience, I came out just with this feeling of abundance. I actually had like an ego death, which is like
just from that one time.
Yeah. But I went all
a couple of times.
Well, I've done it a couple of times, but on that occasion, I went in. Like my prep was 6 weeks prep before it.
All intentional and trying to...
Intentional, no meat, no sugar, no alcohol, no sex, no masturbation, no...
you want to be completely open and...
Completely clean, completely like... Everything they tell you to do, I did. Went in clean as a whistle, and then with a dose that would knock an elephant out. And I literally had an ego death and felt like I actually thought I died. I genuinely thought I died. Space disappeared, time disappeared, concept of reality disappeared, and I genuinely felt like, if you imagine when people say about God is all encompassing, it is everything.
Everything's connected, yeah.
Yeah, everything's connected, but there's also nothing exists, and you're like, yeah, it's just that there is everything and there's nothing, and it was weird. And then as I came out of it, maybe 4 hours later, 5 hours later, your consciousness starts to come back, and then you've got a human body, and I was like, wow. And I just had this overwhelming sense of gratitude, of like love for my partner, love for my friends, love for my family, love for all these other things. And it was like, I was like, wow, like, and then that was where I started my spiritual journey of exploring what is that, what's that about, how does it work. Then I started to put it into all my philosophy stuff that I already knew about. Then the more tangible stuff like karma credits, like understanding karma, like I genuinely believe in karma.
So where did you learn about that? Because like it's quite, when I read it, there's a lot of clarity there. And as someone who's sort of studied spiritual stuff, a lot of people talk about spirituality, but they don't really have much clarity. It's kind of can be a bit woolly and a bit whatever. So where did you get your clarity? Did you do further studies or learn from people or whatever?
I'd have to go through the book and see exactly what. I think it was a combination of like all the stuff I've done from like studying philosophy or reading philosophy, and then the more Stoic stuff, then having an experience, then reading around like the Bhagavad Gita and like the Tao Te Ching, and just realising, for me, because I'm a very logical thinker, I'm looking for the logic, and the logic is if you look at any practice. It doesn't matter if it was written 2,500 years ago or it was written on a Twitter post yesterday. The general consensus of being happy and is be a good person, give more than you take, don't leave crumbs and upset people, and be happy. The secret is to be happy with less rather than think you'd be happy with more. And it's like all those practices seem to be quite similar. And I boiled them down. I looked at all the things that I'd done in line with that worked well. And also looked at all the experiences I had when they'd gone wrong and it hadn't worked. And then I just boiled it down, and that's probably one of my... In fact, I did a new profiling test last week, and it says one of your abilities at my profile is to take complex things and boil it down and make it simple.
Yeah, I think you're very good at that.
Thank you. Yeah.
And actually they say that, isn't it? Like that's a really valuable skill actually, because a lot of, you know, amazing things are complicated and simple at the same time, but sometimes but the people who can present them in a simple way, it's actually a great service to people, because a lot of people otherwise wouldn't be able to get their head around them, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And when we talk about like what's your thing, what's your superpower, and on Property Entrepreneur we tell people to go, you won't really what you think it is probably not what it is. Go and ask everybody else. And I thought mine was like acts of service and like giving back and adding value. And then when I went and asked like the board on Property Entrepreneur, most of them said it's like your blueprints. It's your ability to take complicated things like wealth creation and create a little triangle with 3 lines and explain it in one setting.
Yeah.
And I never really valued it until about a year ago and thought, wow, actually, I just assumed everyone could do that. But same as whatever your superpower is, you'll assume everyone has the same creative vision for filmmaking.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd sit down and look at it and be like, yeah, Ravi, I've got no idea what you're talking about, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I encourage people to check out the book Karma Credits, because it's the universal law of wealth, health, and happiness. It's very, very simple, but as someone who has studied it for many, many, many years in great depth, I would say it's spot on.
Thank you.
And you know, really good.
Appreciate that.
And also, you know, you got your podcast, the Blueprint podcast, and it's interesting, like having this conversation, because obviously, I'm sort of got to know you recently. I'm seeing the fully formed thing, you know, the blueprints, they all seem to me so like clear and insightful and whatever else, but like it's interesting that a lot of it has come together in the last couple of years. I mean, in terms of the visible manifestation of it, you've been learning them all your whole life, but I think it's great. I think it's it's really, really good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about like when you started to talk about it. So you had been on this kind of, well, I guess, you know, you were at that really low point. You started to look at this. How did that change? How did learning about some of these things and thinking about karma credits and the thing change your outlook? And did it happen straight away? Like, did you feel better, or was it you were just slowly kind of getting up out of that hole?
No, I'm definitely an extremist. I'm like, when I go in, I'm like I said about the psilocybin trip, the studying, I'm like considering being a monk. You know, I was thinking like, bigger must be better. Yeah. And all in. I've got a Zen den in my house, meditation, like everything. You know, yeah, all that sort of stuff. One thing that I thought of when you were speaking then is, I remember when I was at school and I listened to Eminem's first album.
Oh man, so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, I listened to his album, and because when he first came out, nobody really knew who he was. He wasn't popular, and I used to listen to it, and all my friends would listen to like drum and bass or garage or whatever for raving, and I used to be a bit embarrassed that I listened to it. And then for about 6 months, nobody was listening to it, or I didn't think anyone was listening to it apart from me. And I was embarrassed to tell anyone in case they didn't like it. And then out of nowhere, somebody said, "Oh, have you heard of this Eminem guy?" And then everyone went crazy for it. And the realisation there was like, I shouldn't be embarrassed if I like something and other people necessarily don't. It was exactly the same with spirituality. I remember thinking about a year ago, when I got into spirituality, I had the same thing of like, no, you got... Because I think even now it is a bit... So bear in mind that was 2019. We're only 3 or 4 years on. Yeah. It does seem to be a growing trend. And
hugely growing, but still... It depends what circle you're in.
Oh,
so
of course,
if you're in a certain circle, it can seem like it's everywhere, but there's still a massive ocean of people who are still not, you know.
I think it's woo-woo.
Yeah. So, but so you were talking about, like, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, when did you start to actually openly speak about it and bring it into your courses and everything?
Well, as soon as I saw the value in it, rather than the Eminem experience where I waited for ages and did it in private, I just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to share with everyone. This is what I'm doing, and I did it on stage, Property Entrepreneur. I was into meditation and stuff like that, and I just bought everyone for Christmas a meditation kit, 200 people, and I sat on stage and I took them through a guided meditation that I'd been doing, and there was people crying. It was like, I think I was feeling like really emotional. I sat there, and to me it was just like, it was an amazing experience to have that sort of shared connection, etc. And then because of that, and the reaction to it was phenomenal, and it still is now. Every year we'll do one. And people say, wow, I learned it on Property Entrepreneur and I've done it every day since. And you just think, I just started sharing it as soon as I knew it. And that was probably like 2020. Yeah. So if I had my first like experience in 2019, probably like 2020.
Were you nervous at first a little bit about it?
Not really. No? I think it was because I've got like a real high level of self-confidence now, which I probably only had for like, well, I've only had it for maybe like last 5 to 10 years, real confidence, which is more like, I really believe, not confidence like arrogance, confidence as in, I feel very content with who I am. And I'll talk to you openly about the stuff we're talking about in the kitchen. Like, I just feel very content with who I am. I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. I just felt like very comfortable delivering it. I genuinely thought it was of value. And normally, I've got a quite good reading of what will land well, and thankfully it did. But no, I didn't. I actually felt really excited, and I actually got emotional thinking about it. I remember preparing for it and having this vision of 150, 200 people meditating together in pitch black. I actually felt quite emotional, yeah. So I didn't feel nervous, I felt emotional.
That's good. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, you've got brilliant like slogans and mantras. I'd say that you're the king of those. I mean, to the point where, like, I genuinely think they're brilliant, but I also find it funny as well, because they're so kind of, I was listening to one of your podcasts and you're saying something like, oh, you don't want to be crying in your beer, or, eating your chips on your own or something. All these little phrases, like, I just laugh, It's like they really paint little pictures, but they're quite extreme, but they really get you to the place very well. I think they're brilliant.
Thank you.
Genuinely. But also, like, I find them hilarious as well. But there's a lot of like other kind of really, clever ones, sort of deep ones, a bit more meaningful, like, life by design, success and failure are very predictable, don't start till you're finished. Like, they're all been really well thought through and they're really clever. But I wanted to ask you about this whole thing of like, life's just a game, which is one of them.
Yeah.
Which I think is brilliant, because it means, in a way, to me at least, it means that, don't take it too seriously, be playful with it, like, figure out how the game works and do it. And I know recently you've been like really upping your social media game and all of that, and like you could say that's just a game, like find the pattern and do it. And it's very much, it's something that I'm asking you about it because it's something I struggle with, the sex sells bit, the kind of like the big things like, 7 figures, 6 figures, this, like the stuff that will catch attention. And it is a game and it works, and so there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But how does it feel? Like, does it feel right for you? Like, for me, I kind of like, as soon as I start to even start to think about how I could do that about the stuff that I do, I just sort of feel, I don't know, I don't think it doesn't feel right. I couldn't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though I might know how the game works, it doesn't mean that I'm comfortable to play it in that way. And it's partly back to that thing you mentioned about M&M. And Daniel Priestley says that, people don't buy what they want, they buy what other people want. And so, I hate that about people. I hate that about, like, it really bothers me. Now, that's me being a bit dumb because, we can't change things. Things are the way they are, but it just really bothers me. I wish that people were thoughtful and kind of like nuanced and, deep and all of that,
yeah.
And maybe they are in the right circumstances. Do you know what I mean? So I just want you to talk to me about the whole thing of like playing the game and being out there, big catchy kind of like sort of what on the face of it seem like brash statements, and doing all of that, and how you feel about it.
So absolutely know exactly what you're saying. And if I wasn't doing it to play the game, I would feel very uncomfortable. It's not me. It's not how I roll. It's not why people like me. When people, one of the good mantras that we have in marketing is don't sell them what they want, give them what they need. Yeah. So people come on Property Entrepreneur thinking, I want £1 million a year income. I want the Rolls Royce. I want that. You get them in the first month we're like, here's a journal. Let's meditate. Here's the wheel of life. And they're like, what the? Like, this isn't the secrets to how to make $1 million. I was like, actually, it probably is. It's like most people, when they ask me to write a book, most people expect me to write a book about money or wealth creation. But to write Karma Credits, to me, that was the ultimate rule to success. If you do that, you will be successful. But I know exactly what you're saying. And Josh and Adam have both said to me publicly, Josh publicly and both of them in private, we feel a little bit uncomfortable about this. We don't pride ourselves on the Ferraris and helicopters. But then 12 months later, when we've got record sales, we've got people queuing up to do the blueprint, it's like, it's sort of part of playing the game. And if you see me last week, Andy wasn't able to drive me, so I just got an Uber. I sat an hour and a half in the back of a very average car that wasn't hugely comfortable. I didn't sit there thinking, this is embarrassing, I can't imagine this. I was sitting in the back of the Rolls Royce, the windows are blacked out. I don't care what car it is, I literally get there driven. But then somebody said to me, what's the best marketing spend you did last year? I said it was buying a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, it attracts a lot of attention for sure.
Yeah, it's just like, who else is doing it? It's immediate credibility. And my next podcast, or in fact it's going to be like a little documentary, 30-minute video, is going to be how I live in a multi-million-pound mansion and drive a Rolls Royce for free. And it's like, who's not going to listen to that? And when you see it's legit, it's quite different.
It's very catchy. I mean, it for sure works, don't get me wrong. And in one sense, I'm really drawn to it, and I'm really like, impressed is the wrong word. I mean, I'm impressed, but not because of the Rolls Royce. I'm just impressed with how you sort of put it all together to kind of, for what I know your intention is.
Just before we finish on that as well, for people who maybe see that from the outside, but they haven't come into the private doors of Property Entrepreneur, hopefully just from your early experience of the community, you'd validate that we're big on, when you walk through that door, the Rolls Royce is parked, in there it's care, it's attention, it's no egos, it's support. You'll have two people sitting next to each other, one of them's losing £1,000 a month, the other one's making £5 million a year, and they'll be having a conversation like they are peers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely one of the things I love about the community is you talk about like, it's not about ego. So when you're in here, everyone, we don't want to leave your ego at the door, right?
Your own race at your own pace. That's it. Yeah. That's the game.
Yeah. And I love that. I almost felt though, like it's funny, because we were at the Belfry and because the one day you did come, right? And I was leaving at the end and I saw the Rolls Royce, but I didn't clock it was yours. And
was I there?
Well, you came. Do you remember the last one day, or the super event?
The super event. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
And it's amazing how powerful these things are. I went, oh, okay, man. I was looking at it. I was going, oh, look at this. And then I realized it was yours. And then I had a kind of a bit of a weird feeling, like, so I was totally impressed by it, but I almost wonder if, like, for me, I don't know if it made me, like, it was a good thing that I realized it was yours, or like it's so powerful online. But I don't know, having it there at the event then sort of like was a bit jarring. Do you know what I mean? But overall, it's amazing. And to be fair, I mean, I would love a Rolls Royce to experience it, but I don't think I would want to probably work hard enough to get one, and I'd probably be a bit stressed out if I had one.
Yeah, it's all part of the game. It's like, it's not a personal aspiration. When I had my supercar before, I drove it for 3 months. And parked it. Sav and I have just been away for the week in the Volvo. It's like, and we didn't even have the dogs. It's like we took the Volvo just because it's like we took the Volvo. It's easier. Yeah. It's all a game, and it can be a complex game, but it's also, it's just about being content with how you play it, I think.
Yeah, that's it exactly, I think. And the other thing I've wondered about is, so my audience, because they're very, social impact people, they're all into sustainability and all of that, I sometimes worry that for them, they're still human beings, don't forget. So it probably still would work on them. Yeah. But I think they would say that kind of stuff would not work on them because it would put them off. But the problem is because we're so hardwired, it probably would still work on them. Do you know what I mean? But I'm always nervous because of the type of audience that I have with my work, of that kind of thing.
Well, it's like, don't be the dentist with bad teeth, right? It's like, if you're professing to be able to provide a lifestyle and things that work,
you got to show it.
There's got to be a degree of that.
Yeah.
To a degree. But I've gone completely OTT with it to see if it works. But next year I'm going to go halfway house, which is living off the steam.
And you lived in a narrowboat for a bit as well.
And it was the best year of my life. I'd still be doing it. If my missus didn't not want to live there, I'd still be on a narrowboat.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. You
could just turn it into like a yacht narrowboat.
Well, I don't think it would be as fun. Like, the thing about the narrowboat is you have to empty your own toilet, you have to fill up with water, you're constantly thinking about how far is it to the next fuel stop. Talk
to me about that just for a second, like about, and I get that all of the glitter and all is partly because it's nice and, why wouldn't you want it? But it's also part of the game and stuff. But talk to me about that, because if you said it to me earlier, you said it again, that was the best year of your life. How do you make sense of that?
So just one sentiment on the flash and the dazzle is when you get to a point as well where your calibration of progress is money. So like for me with entrepreneurship, moving through the levels just comes with extra zeros on checks, and it really is that binary. You do get to a point where your outgoings are here and your income is here, and you're like the Rolls Royce. James Caan said, "Don't buy anything until you can afford to buy it twice." I could afford to buy it 10 times, and I was like, and I've still got a mental hang up of not spending money because I've been
so used to that,
so shrewd for so long. There is a degree that actually you need to increase your outgoings to actually make the next part of the journey worthwhile. And also, again, these are like things I've learned recently. Is like when you like buy my most recent house, is like I would never 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, when it came to fruition that I might have the opportunity to buy it, it was outside of my reach to even think about owning a house like that. When I removed my limiting beliefs, all of a sudden, very quickly, it was very accessible. And actually, I could probably do it no money down and do it from my financial fortress. So it's like you have to develop that.
Move your lines, isn't it?
Yeah, your relativity, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
So just on that was just a closing sentiment on that. And then the other bit was about the narrowboat.
Being the happiest year. How do you make sense of that?
Again, relativity. It's like if your relativity is, if you're always looking at relativity, is the relative thing for me is I lived on 750 quid a month for 2 years, lived on the narrowboat, and the things every day would be busy. Like I love being busy. I said to you earlier, when I'm not working, I'm cleaning the kitchen, I'm doing whatever, I'm tidying my desk. I've always got to be doing something. And when you're on the narrowboat, there's always stuff to do. You've got to be cruising.
And you're also active in your environment, like you sort of feel like a not a passenger, but you're an active part of your life, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like you're heating the boat with a log fire, with logs that you've chopped and you've dried for a year, and twigs that you've been out and collected, and it's like I always say
feel
about
connected.
100 to
yourself, to the environment, to just generally connected, like plugged in, as opposed to you described earlier when you had all the other stuff but you felt disconnected. Do you think that was part of it, that you felt kind of connected?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I never acknowledged that I did, but I think I probably did. What I did explicitly realise was I disconnected from society. I'd go to work once a week, go to the office for once a week or 2 days a week, and I'd come back in my shirt and my trousers, my briefcase, and I'd take that off, chuck it in, leave it in the car because I didn't want to take it to the boat, and I'd get on the boat, and it was like society and reality, or society in that game of social media, Ferraris, Mercedes, all lives out there, whereas this is living. Like being in this boat is living, is like eating, heating,
all the simple things.
Oh, it's just amazing. And you've got to worry about something. So I talk about my granddad when I talk about this. Let's give an example. Is you've always got to have something to worry about. My granddad, where he lives, you're not allowed to, the bins get collected on a Wednesday. The council rule is you're not allowed to put your bins out before 6:30 on a Tuesday night. His neighbour always puts it out at 6:15 so we can watch a TV programme. My granddad will sit there and wait for him to take it out 15 minutes more than he's allowed, and he'll go, "I can't believe it, he's done it again, he knows the rule, 6:30.
Yeah.
And it's like, it has absolutely no significance bearing anything on his life, but it's something to worry about. And if you're going to worry about the bins, you might as well worry about, on the boat was the sticks, in real life is your podcast, whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to find something to worry about. You might as well make it worthwhile.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I had some guy the other a week ago. I parked in the village in a slightly wrong spot. It was in the evening. He was threatening to smash my car, beat me up.
Yeah.
Because he just couldn't deal with it that I'd parked in the wrong spot.
Yeah. And if your problems are up here and you're worrying about just something more significant, whatever, global warming, anything, you're worrying about something that's got a little bit more purpose. If you don't, you'll find, when I tried retirement, all I did all day was look for stuff to worry about.
Yeah, so what, I mean, you just alluded to it earlier, but you retired at 35, made a fair bit of money and all of that.
Yeah.
What keeps you busy? So what is it? Like maybe when you were younger, it was your dad's work ethic and all of that. What is it now? What's driving you?
Well, again, we talked about earlier, is like, you never get the golden ticket, right? You never find the secret sauce. It's all just a journey of like what works well, what doesn't. So for example, I'm not drinking at the minute, and it's like I'm really enjoying not drinking. My gym training's better. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning. It's like, that's really nice and enjoyable and conducive, and I'm like always optimizing for sort of things. And one of the things that I optimize with is I know I need to be busy. I know I need to have stuff to do. So one of the reasons for buying this new house is, hopefully everything goes to plan, and and fit, and I do buy it, and I'm fit enough and well enough to enjoy it. I want to be there for 20, 30 years. So I want to develop a farm, and I want to grow veg, and I want to have my chickens again, because I used to have chickens. And I just want to have things. I always want to be busy, but it's busy doing stuff. Worrying about the chickens, building a new fence, and then sitting there at the end of the day, exhausted with a cold lemonade or a
sense
ginger
of
beer,
achievement, and
just be like, wow, look at your house. You did your garden, you did this. You must look at it and be like, I created that. I built that. Great sense. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you paid somebody to do it and you just came back after your holiday and it was here, you just be like, okay, yeah, nice.
Well, that's a good example of where I'm digging out a new area down there, and I'll get a bit of help with it. But I actually, you could say, that thing of if you could pay someone else to do it for less than what it would your time's worth, then do that. But actually, I get way more satisfaction from digging it myself.
Yeah, so that rule, the hourly rate rule applies unless it's family or favours. It's like if a family fun or favours. If you enjoy it, don't pay somebody else to do it. If it's your family, don't get your PA to buy your missus's Christmas present. Or if it's favours, if you're doing a favour for somebody, don't. Well, I mean, you could get your driver to go and do it, but it's not.
But if it's a personal thing, we're talking about giving that box, you'd want to give it yourself.
Yeah, here you go. My mate made this for you. It's it's not really how it works, is it?
He just couldn't be bothered to give it to you himself.
yeah, exactly. You just wouldn't do it. So.
Yeah, but that's so. So I'm very excited for you.
Thank you.
I saw the pictures of the house. It looks amazing, and the grounds. And I think it'll be great. But how are you going? What are you doing to make sure that you're getting that? So you're almost like having the busyness, the activity, with the sort of sense of simplicity back to the land. It's a bit of the narrowboat kind of thing in a different context. It's more wholesome, I suppose. But how are you going to, and you're also talking about going to the next level in terms of the numbers on the zeros and all of that. How are you going to manage that balance of striving for that and at the same time being content in the now and not making the same mistakes of the past of burning out, overdoing it, the extremes?
Well, we learn these things about ourselves as we go through the journey, don't we? And one of the things that I realised is I've got a really bad habit of leaving things till they're as bad as they can get, and then I'll give up. So if I think maybe last August, I thought, you know what, I should probably get off the beer again because it's come a bad habit. We're drinking most weekends again now. I should probably get rid of it. But I didn't. I left it all the way until whenever.
Yeah.
Until I was absolutely sick of myself doing it. I'm not doing it anymore, I'm fed up with it. And then you pull the trigger and you're like, wow, why did I leave it so long? I'm just one of those people. And I've done that with work now, where I've gone to the polar opposite of I've worked so hard, burnt myself out, completely not enjoying it at all. Now I'm like, right, I'm sick of hearing myself say it. I'm not going to do it.
But how are you going to do it differently? What are you going to...
So rather than... Because now it doesn't hurt. Because now we're out of summer season, I could live my life like this. I love it. It's great. I'm here doing a podcast with you. I'm having lunch with a business partner in Birmingham. Life's great. But I know if I don't take action now, which is what I don't do, I wait until I get to next spring, and I'm like, wow, now I've got to do 5 months of marketing again. Yeah. And I've thrown myself into the firing line. So it's taking action now to put those people in place, and that's been going on for the last 6 weeks. So it's doing that. Raising the bar, so buying the house. So I'm like, right, I've now bought the house. Andy will work the grounds and stuff, but it's a requirement now. I have to look after the house.
It becomes a bigger responsibility and more maintenance.
Exactly.
Definitely.
And the other thing is, although I've sort of publicly said I still don't know if I want to have kids, I absolutely know I want to have kids. And it's I've got this window of opportunity now to start a family where it would be perfect. I would like to start a family. So I'm like, right, as far as up in the ante goes, that's pretty much there. So now I just need to walk the talk and actually pull the trigger and step out, recruit the people.
Yeah.
And just create rules. I've just created more rules. I've got an addictive personality, a lot of entrepreneurs. I could spend a whole day on WhatsApp. I get into the habit of have WhatsApp on my laptop, and I feel like all day all I'm doing is sending WhatsApp messages.
And also, isn't it? It feels like you're being productive because you're doing these little quick
it's just
responses.
Mistaken activity for progress. You're I've achieved nothing today. I've been on WhatsApp all day. So whereas now I go on it 3 times a day, which for most people who do that anyway, that wouldn't sound like a big thing. But for me, it's I feel like I've got my life back. So I'm on my phone, available all day, every day. And all of a sudden now I'm doing high value work. So it's all very strategic. I wouldn't say any of it's easy, and there's definitely not a silver bullet, but I'm like very clear on what I want from my life, and I'm just trying to do everything I can to raise the bar to get rid of those things that have been holding me back for the last few years.
And is that mostly about delegating, putting in people to do them for you, or?
Yeah, it's just playing at the level I've played at's been very effective, and I had a great life for the last few years, made a lot of money. But my plan is, how do I? So there's a good mantra that says, basically, work ethic is completely overrated. It says, if you pride yourself on work ethic, you'll get beaten 10 times a day by insecure masochists who will outwork you. And for like someone at my stage of the journey, 20 years in, I look at the people that I now mentor, and it's life or death to them. They're starting at 5 a.m, they're finishing at 10 at night. It's 7 days a week. I'm like, physically, I can't compete with you, but mentally, I can in 1 hour, with my experience, connections, in 1 hour of good work or 2 hours of good work, I can make more than you will in a year at that stage of your journey. Whereas I can very easily fall into trying to compete with those guys by having an arm wrestle.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, it's like I need to be doing heavy thinking, not heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And really moving into that space. And just changing your mindset. Like the first time I used to pay people 6 figures, I used to think, wow, I can't believe I'm paying people that. Now I'm looking at paying people like significantly more than that. And I'm thinking, that's how you get ahead at this new level. Like I'm looking at these new... somebody needs to be more incentivized than you to go and do what they're doing. And I've had that experience for the last 3 or 4 years in my incubator businesses, where I'm seeing them fly and I'm getting a share of the pie, but I'm only putting in the experience, they're putting in the energy.
The tweaks, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I can save them 5 years of doing the wrong thing. So yeah, it's in a roundabout way to answer your question. There's a lot of things I need to do, and I'm doing them. So I just need to get on with it, really.
Well, thank you so much.
That's great.
I've got a couple of little, so I call them the 6 pillars of life. Just
Nice.
I'll just say the word, and I just want a short few thoughts on it.
Cool.
So, friends.
Low volume, high value. But I don't have many friends. But I also, and again now, because I'm quite a deep thinker and a learner and I want to know everything about myself, I read about myself. And this most recent profile test I did, it quite clearly says you will have very few friends, but they'll be very select. They'll be very intelligent people. You'll have deeper meaning conversations about life over porridge. You won't go down the pub and have 10 pints of lager and go pulling girls. It's like, I'm interested in the deep, meaningful conversation, not the weather and the traffic sort of thing. So few friends, but really high value ones.
Yeah, that's good. Money.
It's a resource, not a reward. I think it's very effective as a resource. It definitely people say money can't make you happy, and Arthur Brooks articulates it perfectly, and he says money doesn't increase happiness, it reduces unhappiness. And I would say without a doubt that's been my experience. The happiness that I've got from money has been using it as a resource. The reward that I've had from money is that I've never had to worry about paying a phone bill. Like that's been my experience with that.
Yeah. Family.
Family. There's probably like 2 sides to it. I say it's the next step for me. Is starting my own family, and because I had because I had 2 families and they all had their own family. It actually ended up quite disjointed. So we're involved in all this family activity, but it wasn't like a one holistic thing. Whereas I think you're growing up was the family unit, wasn't it? Whereas we've always been very independent. Whereas I'm looking forward to start having my own family. One of the things I got from business was my paternal. One of the reasons I wasn't hugely driven to have kids was because I had 40 kids. Do you know what I mean? I had 40 people that I invested and looked after and led. So I had that paternal satisfaction. I'm looking forward to having that and just having a small gang. My small club would be my little family. I'm looking forward to that as a next step. I'm sure the romance will be very different to the reality in practice, but...
Oh, but it's a great learning.
Yeah.
There's almost no personal development like having kids.
Yeah, I bet. So I'm looking forward to that. And I would say and then probably my existing family is like very varied. I would say a very varied group of people, which is great because I'm the combination of all of them, and it's worked really well for me.
Nice. Health.
Always been an agenda point. Always gone to the gym. Always run marathons. Trained for stuff. Always done it. Never wanted to do it until my dad got ill and died at 66, and I just thought, I've now got this newfound drive. For the first time in my life ever, I actually want to be fit, and rather than doing it because I think I should, I now want to do it because I'm motivated to actually do it. So like my eating, my training, my fitness, I'm doing it because I really want to do it now, rather than previously I did it because I had to.
And you think part of that is not wanting to burn out? Like, would you have seen that as connected to health in the past?
Well, stress is one of my, when we do our 10 lessons learned on Property Entrepreneur, my biggest one for last year is that stress is poison. Like, I never realised, because I just rolled with it. And I used to say, I'm not stressed, I'm not a stressed person, because I used to associate stress with irritable.
But you're absorbing it like a sponge, just because, And
that was part of my issues, my emotional issues, was like I suppressed it all. And now I know what stress is. It makes me feel mentally sick. Like it's not good for my mental health. It's not good for my physical well-being. So yeah, absolutely. But the ironic thing is, when I'm clean, like I am now, best training, best cleaning, best diet, no drinking, like I could easily go, like I'm in ultimate performance. So it's being ultimately clean. People say, I can't do a body transformation this year because I'm focusing on my business. That's actually a bit of a false economy, because it's like if you focused on your body, you would have more energy, more mental acuity, more productivity. So it's like,
but still knowing
it's a seductive trap.
Yeah. Creativity or self-expression.
Nowhere near as uncontrollable as it used to be. So similar to you, I'm a dynamo profile. So I've got a very high frequency brain, always thinking, always ruminating. But when I was younger, it was uncontrollable. Like I'd wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to get to sleep because my brain would disappear down these avenues. Whereas now I'm a lot more stoic thinker. Like I don't feel creative the way I used to. Like I'd come up with an idea and be, wow, this is amazing. It's just the way I think now. But it's a lot more managed. It's a lot more stoic. I miss it. I miss the adrenaline ecstasy of coming up with an idea and being so excited. But actually, to enable that to be effective in business, it needs to be more composed, and it's definitely dulled down a bit. Plus, I take quite a few supplements now, like magnesium and ashwagandha, and the sole purpose is to calm me down. And if I stop, my creativity turned into anxiety in the end. So I've deliberately dumbed it down a bit. But sometimes I'll stop taking supplements for maybe 3 or 4 days, and my brain will go off the hinges. But also, I won't feel good.
Well, you kind of said there that business is a filter, or like it's an expression of your creativity, but it contains it in a way, because it has to, because it needs to fit with the business model, and that's great, and you're so good at it, and it's like really a great channel. But like, do you think that as you get more wealth, so it's a good thing, but it's also a limiter? Like we were talking earlier about if someone was wealthy enough that they could just then make beautiful boxes and spend a month on them and give them to someone. So like, when will you graduate from that thing of seeing everything as a business to kind of just doing some things that express that creativity and that joy that are for no purpose other than just to do that?
Well, I'm hopeful that the house is going to be that. Is like, want to make a home, have a farm on the grounds. I'm hopeful that that's going to be, because I've got the energy and it needs to be used, and because I'm good at business and it pays well. If I don't have something else to do, like clean the kitchen, I'm doing.
You do
something.
More business.
Yeah, I do more business. I'll come up with a new program or a new blueprint or a new podcast or whatever. I'm hoping that, and one of my objectives for next year, personal objectives, is working in the garden. And what that means is, by working in the garden, it means I'm working in the garden, as in like building veg patches, sorting the goats out. I'm working in the garden, but actually up here, I'll be working. My work is...
And it's a great way to think.
Yeah,
clearly.
absolutely.
When you're doing something more manual, it's a brilliant way to think.
And those ideas land and you're like, wow, like where did that come from? But it'll never come when you're sitting there in WhatsApp sort of thing. So it's very intentionally part of my plan this year. Is one of the mantras for next year is for my team is you can have my head but you can't have my hands. So it basically means like, you want me to solve a problem, you want me to tell you the answer, give it to me, I'll think about it and I'll give you it back. But I'm not writing email copy, I'm not building sales pages, I'm not getting involved. Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant. And last one is love.
I would say roller coaster. I think I jokingly said this recently, and it went pretty viral on like social media. It got like repurposed and stuff. Someone said, "Why do you want to be successful?" And I said, "Because I wanted to get laid." And I half said it joking then I repeated it as a half joke. And I've since actually, because people have mentioned it back to me, I've actually thought about it. And I think again, all successful people everything we do in life comes from our childhood, right? And most successful people, it's because of some pain,
a deficit or something.
Something happened in their younger life. And I look back at like my earliest boyfriend girlfriend relationships, and I think there was like one or two people that I was like madly in love with, and they maybe weren't madly in love with me. And then it took me on this journey of what I'm doing now. And then I had my business thing where so that was like, I was really passionate then. Then I probably suppressed it and went on this business journey because I went on the business journey. And then since 2019, 20, reconnected with it. And I would say love for me is a very deep-rooted, it's a deep thing for me. And it will take a trigger like talking about my dad or talking about the charity or watching a film where someone does something heroic for somebody else. That will trigger me and really I'll feel it very, very deeply where most people won't. But if somebody falls over and cuts their leg, I'll be giving them first aid. I won't be crying. If something goes bad in the business, I'll be logically sorting it out. I won't be getting hysterical. So it's like my love and emotion is very deep rooted, and it's not something I lack, but it's equally not something that I wear it on my sleeve in the fact that I'll talk about stuff with you, but I won't sit here and cry and like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So for me, I'd say it's something I feel, but it's very, very deep rooted, and there's only a few things it connects with. That would be that one.
Great. And this is a big one, so you just answer it in whatever way, but because it's something that you talked about, I think, when you talked in the Soul Purpose podcast. So, Dan Hill, who are you and why are you here? Easy question to finish with.
I think that's the ongoing quest, isn't it? There's like that's a whole nother podcast episode. Who do you think you are and why do you think you're here?
Good question. I think I'm an eternal soul on a journey, and in this particular lifetime I'm born in a particular family, a particular ancestral line, I guess. And I think on a deeper level, I think I'm here to try and realize my true full self as a soul, and to connect with the whatever we might call the super soul or the supreme. And on a day-to-day level, that's something that I struggle with, especially. So we're going off here now, but because I spent 7 years as a monk, and it was such a high level of purpose. It's very difficult for other things to match that level of purpose, especially when they're relative things. So I sometimes look at people who have a really defined. I mean, I'm generally pretty purposeful, so I'm pretty content. I'm always aware of that big picture, and I'm kind of doing my best to navigate it. But I also sometimes look at people who have a really strong sense of purpose, and I'm jealous because I'm like, I can't get that excited about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's going back to the climbing the mountain. That intense feeling of purpose, that was what I had. And I look at my mentees, the people who run the businesses that I'm joint ventured in, and I don't say I wouldn't envy it, but I look at them with, I admire their energy because they've got that sense of purpose, they go in there.
It's the clarity so it's not what they're aiming for that I'm jealous of, I'm just jealous of the clarity that they have in that moment.
Agreed.
Because I had it, and now it's not as clear.
And I think in that podcast or another one, I talked about one of my concepts is like the meaning of life is just to wake up every day and be excited. And it can be anything.
Yeah.
It can be the fact that you're going to build out your new home office and your studio. Or it could be the fact you're going to dig out the end of the garden tomorrow. is to wake up every day and be excited by something. And it could be something grandiose like getting to Mars, or it could be something tiny like you're going to plant some sunflowers tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like one of the academic rationales I've got to the meaning of life. Now I'm starting to think about family. I think about reproducing, especially now I'm looking at, now obviously now I'm tuned in and I see kids who look like their parents. And I'm like, that's a fundamental part of life, is to create people that are the next version of you, sort of thing.
Yeah. And hopefully to, you know, if you are doing personal development, to like break some of the, we talked about ancestral, like break some of those family patterns or some of those, you know, trauma type things that we kind of inherit. It's like each iteration to try and improve it a little bit. And that's kind of like what you get to do through your kids a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And when there's fundamental wrongs or things that need to be washed out, like, I don't know, negativity or something, hereditary illnesses that could be flushed out through diet, absolutely. Equally, there is a sort of ongoing mantra that most people who have kids want to be different parents to what their parents were. There is a bit of the bowling ball going down the alley, coming off the bumpers, isn't it? It's like, I'm not going to be like them. So you're not like them, and then they're like this. You know, I'm not going to be a pushover, so you're really strict, and then you're really strict, they go, I'm going to be a pushover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true.
But I think, like, just to ask about who am I and why am I here, I don't know, but I would say the things that I enjoy doing, that I would say I'm good at and that add value, is like, I feel like I'm a good leader. I feel like I can take people on a journey with whatever it is, optimism, values. I can do that well. Taking complex things and boiling it down. These are more my strengths than they are like my purpose. But there's certain things. But
they may lead to. They'll definitely lead somewhere, and maybe it'll become more clear exactly what you're supposed to do with them as you go. Like, I love that you say that. You know, you can't know the next step till you take the first step, isn't it?
Exactly. And I would probably, one thing that I do feel quite passionate about is, I do feel like we're going to look back in 100 years, and this is going to be the period in time where everyone's primary focus was menial work. So like 40 hours a week for 40 years to retire. I do feel like in our lifetime, or in the next 100 years, we're going to look back on this period as like, I can't believe people. It's a form of, I don't want to say slavery or like prison, where people have to do it. Whereas having been an entrepreneur, although it's not for everyone and it's not without its challenges, I do feel like people should be provided the opportunity. I feel like we're going to move into a place where everyone's a freelancer.
Yeah.
Freelancer everything.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, bookkeeper, admin.
Yeah. It's just trying to figure out where you can add value, isn't it? And what people will pay you for. And that you also enjoy. Ideally, it's the ikigai, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's ironic because I'm saying that because I think it's important, whereas the people who work 40 hours a week for 40 years are like, I can't believe you'd want to risk it and do that. Don't take this away from me. So I think probably encouraging people, whether I do it through the private schools or property entrepreneur or living off the steam, you know, something like that. That's the only thing I think at the minute is I would like more people to have the opportunity to be financially independent, so you don't have to work.
And a life by design, isn't it?
Yeah, life by design. Yeah, in fact, that probably is even higher than that. Is financial independence is part of life by design. It's like you know, that whole thing. You live to work. No, work to live. We can handle the meaning of life, but we can't handle that.
I know what you mean. Yeah. But like, life by design is powerful, and the way you present it on the thing is powerful too, because you say it's different for everybody. That's what's so brilliant about it. Is actually getting people to really think about what is that life that you want by design, and is it your design, or is it someone else's? Get to what it is for you.
And there is not one person on the planet that's going to have the same life by design as you. So it's like having that. We say it's a privilege on Property Entrepreneur to be able to design your own life, and I genuinely think it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. Some things you keep, some things you get rid of. But it's a privilege every year to create a year, go and live another chapter, and you know we'll be sitting on a bed at some point and look at that book and be like, wow, that was 50, 60, 80, 100 amazing chapters, rather than I worked at Tesco's for 40 years. Well, again, I don't want to speak disrespectfully, because some people will do that and they want to do that. But you know what I mean?
Yeah,
for those who want to do it, it's there.
Yeah. Listen, thank you for chatting to me.
Thanks for having me.
For me, you've definitely been an inspiration.
Thank you.
Both on the business side, but also because you've got these other components, which are sort of things that I appreciate. I appreciate both. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
A pleasure. So thanks everybody for listening to that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's stuff you could take away from it. And you can connect with me at Be Inspired Rav, and Dan is at Property Entrepreneur. You'll search, you'll see his bright face on a blue background on the thumbnails. And we'll see you in the next one.